In my last 3 videos on the origins of life, I just want to clarify that this is an overview, and these are thoughts that I have had, that I've put a lot of time into, but I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I am still not an expert. And I do like to watch experts and talk to people and reach out. And this is stuff I've been studying and questioning for years, as far as Genesis and evolution and all that kind of things. But it's not a substitute or to replace like faith or seeking yourself, because this all started with me seeking. And the most important thing is still, I want to make sure everybody understands, the most important thing is still to have a relationship with God. And these are things that help to build my relationship with God, praying and asking Him to show me these things, because I am curious by nature. I ask a lot of questions. And I'm very thankful that ever since I was very young, I was never discouraged in asking why, or asking questions, or being curious. And my grandmother was a Bible teacher, and she always encouraged me to seek out, these types of things. And when I got older and I did start to question a lot of things, and I did pray on them, I'm really thankful that the Lord kind of helped me to bring this together in my mind. And it's not perfect, because like I said, I'm not an expert, but so if you go back and watch my last 3 videos, I'm talking about the origins of life and going through, the first book of Genesis, about the creation. And, I've already stated that, I believe that God was the catalyst, and that creation was actually, what he's describing in the beginning was actually the Big Bang, and how it does fall in line. I'm just going to do a quick overview. I'm going to just try to tie this all together really quick. So I do a quick overview of how everything lines up with evolution. Again, I do not believe in Darwinism. Do not believe it's possible biologically or genetically for one species to evolve into a completely different species. And even in Genesis, it's kind of crazy, because Moses says that he made each of their own kind. Now, their own kind, I believe, could be referring to a species, and that they did adapt and evolve, which is different. So when I was in my last video too, when I was talking about how God said, the moon, the sun and the moon were created. They were created, and so we have the Big Bang, where God created the heavens and the earth. Then we have where He created the firmament, which I believe is the ozone layer, where He separated the waters from the dry land and the seas. And then He created the sun and the moon and kind of brought everything into order. And the next thing that happened was that life came out of the seas, and we know that scientifically everything first was in the seas. They talk about the primordial soup, and we needed that for oxygen, the atmosphere, the photosynthesis. And then, so life first came from the seas, and we have, the plants that the plants, and then the creatures on the dry ground. The order, if you look at it with Genesis, and again, if you go to my YouTube channel, and I do have the link in my bio, you can see that I have several videos in a playlist. The playlist is called Historical Bible Videos. I have some of the documentaries and stuff in there. Those are just a few that I found really interesting. And what I keep looking at is my notes, by the way. But I just want to say that this is not a replacement for faith. And I did a lot of these videos because I've talked to people who, and this has come up in conversations with just a lot of people, and I'm not talking about one specific person. I'm talking about over the years. When I was in school, when I was younger, just throughout my lifespan, I've had a lot of people that when I'm like, oh, I'm a Christian, and they'll be like, okay, well, I believe in science, or I believe in evolution, and I'm like, well, that's cool, because this is what the Lord's shown me, and this is what I believe, and I believe in intelligent design. And I believe that science, when you actually really do look at it, does support the Bible, along with all the historical and, you know, documentation that we have, like such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, for example. But I have a lot of faith because God has brought me through a lot. He has been there. There's also the spiritual side. And I talk to a lot of people who say, well, I believe in something. I believe in a higher power. But how do we know it's the God of the Bible? And I would say my best thing is, you know, for me, I feel like the Lord has shown me that the Bible is trustworthy, that it is His Word. But it was a long journey. Like, this was a long journey for me. Several years of getting to this point. So that's why I say I don't judge anybody. You know, everybody, you are in your own walk and your own journey. And I would say seek the Lord. Pray. Seek the Lord. Seek Him. He says if you seek Him with all your heart, you will find Him. I've done a lot of this because it does say to study to show thyself approved. And it does say that to be ready with an answer when somebody asks you about the faith that you have. So I can say that, well, the Lord has provided. I have been through a lot this past year with my boyfriend passing away last year and then just losing my mom at the end of March. There's a lot that I've had to walk through. And it would be really easy for me to get angry at God or to question God and to ask Him why. And I've said before, God's not afraid of our why. But I studied the book of Job and as well, and I know what God's answer to Job was. And I'm not going to go into that right now. I might do that in another video at another time, but God's not afraid of our why. He says to seek Him with all your heart. He says if you seek, you will find. So I did a lot of seeking, and yes, I've talked about this before, but I've looked into other religions, and I've looked to science, and I've looked to different things. At one point, God did reveal to me that He was real, but it took me a very long time to come to the conclusion that it was the God of the Bible, that it is, that's who I believe in. And I do believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and that He died and rose again on the third day. And I do believe in salvation. So I get very excited about these things because to me it just supports and builds my faith. And I'm very passionate about that. I'm very passionate about these things. These are things that interest me. These are things that have helped me over the years. And I thought maybe it'll help somebody else too. But I would say if you're questioning that, there's nothing wrong with that. But seek Him, ask Him to show you, to guide you, to lead you to the correct answers, and to help you to build your faith. And I am not by any means pushing aside the spiritual aspect of this, because I definitely know that God is spirit and we have a spirit, and that there are things that science can observe but cannot explain. And seems like the more scientists learn, the more questions that they have. And there's nothing wrong with that. You keep seeking. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying that these are some of the things that have helped me over the years. So, have a wonderful night. Now, those are my late night thoughts.